All right, welcome back to Shed Talk today. Today's guest is someone who doesn't pull punches. And that's exactly why we have her on the show because she's an outstanding lady. She does things that, you know what? I don't know how many books she's written, but there's more books than she's written than I've written. One of the greatest books she's written right now is Going Menopostal. Creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. Thank you for coming on Shed Talk. All right, so
Thank you. Yeah.
let's jump right into this. Let's get into the book because we talked a little bit just before it. Why did you name it Going Menopostal?
Well, 2 reasons. One is this that some women do go nuts. The symptoms are very horrible. So there's perimenopause, that's the transition years to menopause, and then there's menopause. And perimenopause is the time when women tend to go nuts, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Not all women, but some women, and I was one of them, where it's not so much nuts, but I had these inexplicable rages. I'm this nice person. I like people. I talk to everyone. I can tell you the name of every service person in my neighborhood, Vincent with the bottles across the bar, because, that's how I live. And when I was in this perimenopause phase, because of something that happens to you hormonally, which I can get into, because you guys need to know, so there isn't like a bomb going off in your life and you don't know what happened. I had these inexplicable rages, and I felt so ashamed because I was really hateful bitch. I'd be in the hardware store, and I'm from the Midwest, and I really like men, and there'd be some guy, and he'd be like, "Oh, my dad," and he'd be behind me buying some stuff, and he's humming, and oh my god, I want to like bludgeon this guy with the nearest like heavy object. And I felt so terrible, but it was the humming, like everything sets you off. And this is why it's so important. This is why I wrote this book. So women could get evidence based medical care because nobody really knows about this. The doctors don't know. I mean, this is so insane. This is the biggest area of betrayal in our medical care. But guess what? Every area of medicine is so not evidence based across the board. There's a quote on the back of my book, and this is in the US, that's the US National Academy of Medicine. More than half of the medical care we get in the US may not be based on or supported by adequate evidence, not great evidence, adequate. And that was 2011. And so it's a little bit later than that. Medicine's more complex. It's so horrifying. And if you don't know the science, I know the science because I spend all my time just reading scientific studies and looking into these areas. You're just at the mercy of doctors who do not read the science, who don't know the science for the most part. I mean, I can go through, there are 3 myths that we believe about our medical care, believing it to be, adequate, that are not true. And this is across the board. In this chapter, I talk about how, okay, I'll tell you the myths now. The myths are that doctors are able to read and evaluate evidence and that they use that for your care. They do not. They are not trained to read scientific studies and critically evaluate them in medical school. They don't have time to read them. So doctors are going by practice standards that are handed down from these medical organizations. Well, guess what? Guess how scientific those things are. They're not. The research, there's often basically medical hearsay that gets handed down in the studies, and people believe what they believe. They have these orthodox beliefs. And I'm not a doctor. I started giving advice by giving free advice on a Soho street corner in the 80s with 2 friends. I'm a crackpot, but as we did this, we had to sign free advice presented by the advice ladies. We thought we'd do this once in New York City, Soho, West Broadway and Broome, and with the sign free. Oh my God, it's New York, free. They line up around the block. And we had these things on our sign like wigs and beards and proper spelling and directions, because what do we know? But people started to ask us serious questions. And so I'm a nerd. So I read through all of psychology. I had not taken a psychology class in college, took one in high school. And I was amazed. Oh my God, Freud just made stuff up. And a foundation for me has always been reason and critical thinking. And my mother modeled this. She would actually incinerate people who had weak arguments, which I thought was a little mean. But so I'm able to reason. That was like my learning process as a child for my mother. Other people learn to bake, not me. Anyway, so I start with the advice ladies, and I get us a TV deal. Someone writes a story about us in the New York Times. I get us a TV deal with De Niro and a column in the New York Daily News and a book deal. And one of my partners turns out to be on drugs. She has a drug problem. So we break up, and I end up syndicating my column that I'd taken over, the column for the three of us. They didn't want to do it anymore, and putting it in 100 papers across the US and Canada. And so while doing this, so I was always reason based, but I felt a responsibility. How dare people give advice? I don't respect really most advice columnists. How dare they give advice like just sort of pulling it out of their ass? Intuition, our intuitions are often wrong. And so what I started doing is my nerd thing. I read science across disciplines. So cognitive neuroscience. I'm an expert in evolutionary psychology. I've been going to their conferences since about 2000, reading their research. It's really important to look at evolutionary theory as a foundation for behavior. Otherwise, behavioral science is sort of empty without the why. Why did we evolve to do this? And people talk about just so stories from that area. Evolutionary psychologists were not liked, the people in this evolutionary science area. So they're so rigorous compared to the rest of behavioral science because everybody, we're not, it's the non PC part of social science. And so they have to be quite good. And not every study is good, but as a discipline, it is much better than all of the other non replicating areas of social science. So anyway, I'm doing all of this. This is my last book. I have a lot of books with fuck in the title. Here's the other one. Fuck. My friends will have an intervention if I do another one. But so in Unfuckology, this is a book where I use behavioral science and evolutionary science to tell you how to live with confidence, and self-respect, how to fool your brain into giving you more of what we call willpower, how to be more productive. And so this has been my area. I wrote an advice column in the newspapers that was basically love dating, sex and relationships, and fair to men, by the way, because I'm a science person. And so I was using all this behavioral science. And then I had met this epidemiologist, Sander Greenland. He's one of the top in the world. He co-authored the seminal textbook in the field, and he's behind methodological reform in science. He's also very generous. So I met him 2007, and he's been coaching me in how to read science, how to critically evaluate it, because I was really afraid. I need to be right. I have a responsibility. It's the ethical thing. If you can't evaluate the science, well, you're writing it and you're basically guessing. So while he was doing this all these years, scolding me, teaching me, he was sending me articles about the fraud and errors and abuse in medicine, the pointless medical care. They find out something's pointless, like knee surgeries for middle-aged people with wear and tear injuries like me. The laparoscopic knee surgery, they did a fake surgery. They did a comparison of fake surgery where they made it seem like, they put some saline on you, and it made it seem like you had the laparoscopic surgery. And the people who had the fake surgery had no, the pain was the pain relief or non-relief was the same in both groups. And so this was like 2002. In like 2016, my Kaiser doctor is telling me he can do this surgery on me if my knee continues to hurt. Well, no, you can't, because it's pointless, and you have recovery time, and people, I mean, it's just crazy. This is what goes on in medicine. So what happens, guys, and you should hear this stuff because you need to know about perimenopause and menopause in case you have a woman who reacts like I did and like many do, where you have these mental health symptoms. Um, I'm sitting here in Venice. This is the most temperate place in the world, 55 degrees, kind of year round. It's breezy. And oh my God, my breezy office, I feel like I was just locked in a car trunk in the Everglades. I think like, oh my God, I think I just had a hot flash. This is horrible, like overheat. It's not a flash. It's like being in an oven, pizza oven. You're stuck in there and can't get out for like 5 minutes. So, or more like a sauna maybe. Anyway, so I wanted to go to my doctor and say, oh my God, I'm really uncomfortable. What should I do? But I know better. So I did this deep dive, science mole rat, I call it, into the science in this area. And I was really shocked that there's a huge gap between the practice standards, what the doctors go by, and then what the science says. And then there's also science that's just crap, like this Women's Health Initiative studies, Women's Health Initiative trial that caused all these women to toss their estrogen in the trash, based on fraudulent, distorted crap, announcement and really crap methodology to study. They said, just because some guys have heard of this, that they said, we tested healthy women in menopause and found that estrogen gives you really everything but cutting your head off. It, like breast cancer, your brain, it's everything's going to go in the toilet. And the truth was, they actually tested, they gave estrogen to like 79-year-old women, 75, 79 years old. Well, okay, these are not the women showing up to gynecologists for prescriptions. And if you take estrogen that late in life, you're broken. And so estrogen basically breaks you further. And if you take it, however, right after menopause, when you should take it, then it protects you, protects your heart, your brain, your bones. It's really important. And so this myth left over from this fraudulent study caused all these women to go unprotected. So I'm telling this because, guys, guess what? Every area of medicine, every area is like this. My doctor thinks I'm going to die of a heart attack, my primary care doctor. I have, triglycerides. A good triglyceride level is considered 150. Mine is 50. I have blood pressure 99 over 62 or 63. I'm extremely healthy. And because he looks at LDL and he believes what's called the lipid hypothesis of heart disease, oh, if you eat a steak, you're going to die. No, 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 that's not true. That they believe this, even though it seems like sugar and flour, eating a high carbohydrate diet, provoking high blood sugar and insulin resistance, all these tied together metabolic diseases, that seems to be what causes heart disease and diabetes and all these other connected diseases, kidney disease. So, this is what our medical care is, and doctors don't know. And there are two other problems. The two other myths are the myth that doctors are trained in diagnostic reasoning, like Dr. House, figuring out what you have. No, they often, in fact, just treat your symptom. This is called the viewing symptoms as disorders error by Randy Nesse, who is an evolutionary psychiatrist. He talks about this where they just go with your symptom instead of looking at the underlying cause, which is very important because, for example, say you have a headache. Okay, are you just stressed out? Do you need a Tylenol? Or is that a brain tumor? Because if we give you something to suppress the headache, that headache, if it's a brain tumor, that was an important sign. So you need to look to the underlying cause. And the final one is that doctors cannot do meaningful and correct risk analysis. Oh, if I take this drug, how likely am I to get this disease? They get it wrong. Most get it wrong. It's really terrible. And it's not that hard to learn. And this is the amazing thing. So this is a betrayal. It is not, doctors are not evil. People say, oh, they're just in it for the money. I go to an HMO. My doctor's not getting a Ferrari for treating me. And so this is really about medical education and institutions. They are at fault. And the doctors, they are going by, the training they got. And then in institutions, they don't have time to read the studies, even if they could read the studies and evaluate them. And you can't expect people, basically, I'm a psycho, to be me, to spend all day and night reading science. People have families, and they want to go places in the holidays and everything. And so medical institutions, they need to employ people to, for example, if you have a doctor doing an eye surgery on you, the doctor will tend to give you steroids afterwards. Well, that doctor, she's not going to know anything about steroids because she has to really focus on the practice of, what do I do? How do I correctly stick this X-Acto knife in your eye? You really want her to be good at that. And I speak personally because I just had this. It's called a corneal endothelium transplant. This one cell layer that's like the plumber of your eye. They had to remove mine and stick on donor tissue. This is why I'm an organ donor. Someone gave me this upon their death. Well, we hope they were dead first, but we think
Yeah.
so. Anyway, um, and so this is amazing surgery, and you don't want it to be rejected. But my doctor gave me a huge overdose of steroids because she doesn't know that area, and really that is a huge area to know. And so she thought, the clinical practice is giving 4 drops of this prednisolone acetate. Corticosteroids really do harm to your body, systemic harm, but you need these to not reject your transplant at first. And she thought, well, okay, if 4 drops are good, and by the way, this is not based in science in this field. This clinical habit they believe is evidence based. It's really terrible. It's all like this. So she thought 4 drops are good, 8 drops must be better. Well, steroids don't work that way. This She actually caused me adrenal suppression. It's called adrenal insufficiency, where I had tachycardia and bradycardia in the same day. These horrible effects where I wouldn't have, if I were metabolically unhealthier, I wouldn't have had these. But I had them because I had such low inflammation. She shut down any power for my body to heal. And then this can cause you long-term damage to your immune system. But luckily I caught it and I'm working on fixing it. No thanks to, having to fight to get evidence-based tests.
Because you looked at your research that you've done before, because you dove into everything, your columnist, and you talked at the beginning about being working, um, be given advice and going through that. Now, how has that changed today with AI? Because doctors, when you look at doctors and they're being clinical with it, everything that they're doing, and then all of a sudden they're able to take that research and say, well, I've got this huge file for this customer. I'm going to put it into AI to sum it up. Here it is, and I can read the bottom line. Bang.
You know what? I don't think doctors are doing that. Doctors don't think, I see it over and over, they're not thinking about the person as a system. And we're all connected. Everything is related. My metabolic health affects how I would have taken my transplant had I not been given an inappropriate dose. All of this is related. When you have, if you have atherosclerosis, where you have plaque in your arteries, I mean,
Mhm.
this is the beginning of the end, and that's why it's really important, especially for men who get heart disease much sooner, to really take care of their diets. And I can talk about the two things that you need to do to have health and longevity. And by the way, I'm a hedonistic, lazy pig. So I don't do stuff that's not doable. As an advice columnist, I would ask myself when I give advice, okay, aim, will anybody do this? And will anybody keep doing this? And if the answer is no, well, then am I allowed to say bad words in the show?
Well, we're not supposed to, but that's okay. But yeah,
Okay.
we'll
Okay,
edit.
you're right.
Yeah.
It starts with A and ends with whole.
Oh, there
And
you go. Yeah.
so, the thing is the same with this. You cannot give people some kind of eating plan, an exercise plan that they're not going to do and feel good about it, because you're just a jerk then. You're just a blowhard putting out some advice to satisfy yourself and fill pages. And so that's the kind of thing that's very important, all of this. And so with AI, by the way, so people will look stuff up on AI. I have to tell you, ChatGPT is the biggest liar. Oh my God. I only look up things I know. And with ChatGPT, it just invents things. So my bibliography was just an unholy mess and I needed to have it alphabetized. And so I thought, oh, AI, cool. And so I put it in. Oh my God, it dropped all these studies. And then it just made studies up that don't exist by scientists who don't exist. It's crazy. And you see that with the science. So I just would ask it things if I need to remember what's this process or what's that called or something. And then it would lie and I would yell at it. So um,
Right. Oh my
scream
gosh.
profanity. Yeah.
Hey, take a minute and smash that subscribe button, and let's get back to the episode. So then you're not using AI at all in anything that you're doing on your research, or even saying, let's pull me out documents or anything that you need to use, correct?
Oh no, I have to in order to find studies. This is the problem with how do we get evidence-based medical care? You have to know the right terminology. You have to have some transdisciplinary knowledge, usually to look up anything. What are the words to look things up with? And so, that makes it hard for people. And basically, my feeling about medicine, in order to get evidence-based care, that basically we need a nerd for every single area. My friends Gary Taubes, Nina Teicholz, Dr. Michael and Mary Dan Eads, they wrote Protein Power. These are the people who are the low carb people, and who started a lot of people eating low carb. And within their books, they all take on the unscience within our medical care. But still, this is what is it? It's 2025. I'm really on
Yeah.
point. It's 2025, and we are still being told to eat a low fat, high carb diet, which provokes high blood sugar and insulin resistance and eventually a broken insulin response. You get chronic low grade inflammation, from having these metabolic problems. And then basically, when you have a need for an immune response, um, your immune system is pooped out from having the fire burning all the time. It's called inflammaging when this happens, and
Inflammation.
it's really pernicious. Yeah. So that's when you have this chronic low grade inflammation. It's just going all the time. You just want the fire department out when there's a fire. I mean, firemen are hot, so that's not entirely true. But, basically, there's always a fire burning you. This is very unhealthy. I mean, it's not really a fire, but it's oversimplifying. But and so eating starchy and sugary carbs, people call it, oh, it's a fad diet to eat low carb. It's not. It really isn't. If you look at what I do is I reverse engineer from the cell. Oh, because nutrition research is a pile of crap. They ask people, Tell me what you ate last month." Okay, I can't tell you what I ate yesterday, number one. And Dr. House, people lie. "Did you have a donut?" "Oh no, that was it was broccoli shaped like a donut." And so this is just utter crap. This is why they say, "Oh, Mediterranean diet. No, this diet. No, that diet." There's never anything conclusive. How can they have all this back and forth? Because if there's good science, relatively good science, it's heterogeneous. They're finding the same thing over and over. And there's basic biology here. Yes, eating starchy and sugary foods sends your blood sugar up. Insulin has to come out and try to, bring it down. This is not disputed. So, the idea that it's not healthy to eat these foods, it's well supported by basic biology. And also, frankly, it's delicious. I started eating carnivore. I did this last February. I wanted to just do it for 2 weeks because I was fixing something, a level of something in me. And I ended up feeling so good from this that it's just how I eat now. And it was really important too with this transplant. I thought, I'm going to be SWAT team on any sort of inflammation in my body. And this is very tragic, tragic, tragic for me. I cut out bacon. I used to wake up, it would be what I live for, like wake up for 3 strips of greasy bacon. And then because I'm from Michigan, but really from Appalachia, I love pork rinds. I still have 2 big jars in my kitchen, but I'm not allowed to eat them because not allowed by me because they have high omega-6 fatty acids, which are very inflammatory, same as pork. So I eat this low inflammation diet, but it's delicious. Greasy hamburger. I eat butter off the stick. I mean, it's
Whoa.
amazing. And you say,
Yeah.
I'm not fat. I eat what I want. And so this is a really important thing to do. People think of it as deprivation, but I see it as I just don't eat things that are going to make me suffer and become very obese and have a really horrible later in life time.
So
And that, yeah.
Oh, no, and I wanted to get deep into that for a second because you talked about longevity. So you started talking about, okay, we're gonna get into longevity and about what are the proper foods groups as in going into. So give an example. My listeners are between the ages of 55, 75 years old, okay? middle-aged middle-aged white men, okay, and then suicide rates is obviously it's high there, and men finding purpose. But one of the greatest things about finding purpose is about what do they fuel their bodies with that actually helps with their brain function, helps with their body looking better. Obviously, exercise is very important, but going into longevity, what does that mean to you?
Oh, it's all this stuff. It's so great you brought up the suicide thing because, this is so horrible. And so many men, it just experience this and shouldn't be. And so much of this is connected because the eating this way, eating the standard American diet, or if you're Canadian, the standard Canadian American diet, you
Still
guys
has
have Tim
bacon.
Hortons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's hard with Tim Hortons, but so um getting your diet in hand like this, it tends to improve mental health. And there are all sorts of things that you can do. You look at what do I do to be emotionally and physically healthy? And physical health, if you're not feeling good, you're not feeling good emotionally, you're not feeling good physically, you don't have the motivation, the energy. It's just so important. And so, if you're eating this way and then there's something else, I just discovered this because of needing to heal from this horrible adrenal suppression, that I needed to get first morning light in my retinas. Now, this turns out to be important overall. And so I get 10 minutes at least of first morning light. What I do is I jog on my porch. So, I mean, people could go outside and everything, but you see that I'm 61, and so and my skin's not too bad because I have avoided the sun and worn French sunblock. I'm not going to put on my expensive French sunblock in the morning, and and so I just jog on my porch where I can see the light. So,
And you're jogging up
and
and
that
down,
helps.
not on a treadmill.
Oh no, I'm just up and down really
Yep,
fast,
yep.
and and so, but this the circadian rhythm is really important for sleep, for your overall health, just down to the cellular level processes in your body. Very, very important. So that's an important thing to do. Sleep is so important. Now, people say they won't take sleep drugs. Oh, and there are reasons people don't sleep. So alcohol,
Mm,
that prevents you from sleeping. And now, people are going to want to go out for a beer with their friends and everything. But I really cut down. I used to drink, I call it glass of Bitey White a night, and I stopped drinking wine because I see the value of being really healthy. And as you age, we're just less robust. We're less able to handle this stuff. Like in my 20s, I get a cut, and like 10 minutes later, like it's healed. Not
yeah.
really, but close to it. And I bumped my toe on the vacuum cleaner, and like where you break your toe. Oh my God, it was black and blue. It was like purple. It was green, like my earrings, for months. And I was really worried, but that's a sign of the lack of robustness. And so the age like 55 to 75, this is the time of like, okay, it's not too late. Start now, because especially men have such terrible heart disease. You need to take that in hand. And even if you have plaque in your arteries, you don't want it to go further. And you can really, we see people reversing diabetes and everything. And so once you have to have the physical part in hand to work on the emotional part and to work on the career part and the what gives your life meaning. And my book, actually, Good Manners for Nice People, who sometimes say the F words as we're polite. You see, you're Canadian, so no swear words. Okay.
Yeah.
That book, my final chapter is called Trickle Down Humanity. And it's about how, you don't become happy by chasing happiness, but by what you're talking about, getting meaning. And the way to have meaning in your life is to extend yourself for others. And so this is so important. And you see, when you do kind acts for others, even small kind acts, this makes you feel good as well as making them feel good. And so this is an important thing to understand. They're just these things that we can understand, like these simple, okay, do this, that help us live better lives. And so another thing is, this is a big part of the on F wordology book. It's that your feelings are not the boss of you. Because you have an uncomfortable feeling doesn't mean you listen to it. That is, you don't want to go talk to that guy over there and pitch him your idea. No, no. You tell your feeling to, sorry, I really am a profane person,
Yeah.
F off, and you go over and you do it. And okay, and you accept also discomfort. I'm going to be uncomfortable. This is going to be hard for me. But then, you go over there and you do it. And say the guy is just a rude jerk to you. Well, okay, you need to manage that. How do you manage that? Small wins. You grew a pair. You're like braver today than you were yesterday. And that's really great. You need to acknowledge yourself for doing that, for having this small win. And the more you approach people and just put yourself out there, the less scary it is. It becomes boring to be scared about these things. And this is how you make things happen in your life. Another thing too about the is willpower. So this guy Roy Baumeister, who's a very famous scientist, wrote about willpower like being orange juice, like will stuff that you use up. This is not. This has been disproved. Rob Kurzban, who is an evolutionary scientist, excellent scientist, he figured out and supported with the evidence in his work that willpower is actually it's our brain looking at whether the thing we're putting our energy into is effective, is advancing our survival and mating possibilities, basically in evolutionary terms. Or if it's just a frustrating and stupid act that in ancestral times, like if you're trying to chip away at a tree to get the stake inside, you needed to get bummed out that you weren't having any stake come up, because otherwise you keep doing it. And so this is our brain looking to us saying, okay, you getting anything out of that? Because I'm not giving you more energy. I'm not giving you any more if this is just some frustrating act. So what you need to do is you fool your brain. So for me, writing is a horrible thing. It's like really stupid thing to do because you just feel like an idiot and unclear, muddled person for quite some time while you're writing stuff of, that's the stuff I write, where I'm trying to make things clear and funny and interesting. And so you don't judge by, did I do a good job on that paragraph? What I came to is that I write to a clock. And so I have to go through the time. So it's 52 minutes I'm writing my column, and it's an hour and 20 when I'm writing books, because that's a different kind of writing. My column is much more intense and tight. So if somebody calls, I need to stop the clock. And by the way, I don't let anyone text me. There are a few friends who can, because that's like the trash of life. They come up on my computer screen and, someone said, you could make them not do that. Yeah, I need to see some text. Like some people's are quite important. And so, if my neighbor needs me, she's elderly. I need to see it. Yeah, it should come up on my screen. So, but I would just, that's that sanctity of writing. And I do that. And it didn't matter whether I was just writing stupid stuff for the entire 52 minutes. But what happens is you'll write something that's not stupid, and you've got a mess on the page at least, and you can edit that. And then you also don't feel like you were a failure, because you've succeeded in doing your 52 minutes. So small wins. You need to, treat yourself with self-compassion and have that, behave in ways where you make yourself able to function, and then go forward and try to do new things, and try to, accepting failure is another one. That's a big thing. Oh, I got into a program, a city attorney's office of LA, to become a mediator. They give you $10,000 worth of free training, and you're supposed to do this volunteer work afterward. They had 600 applicants. I was one of 30 chosen, and were they sorry they chose me? I was the worst person in my training. I was the only one who read the homework, and so I was so laden down with that stuff in my head. We did role playing, and I was basically like, it's terrible. So you have a debriefing after, when they said, we don't think you're really cut out for this, and you don't have to you don't have to do the volunteer work. I was so upset. And I said, oh my God, please, I will work so hard. As a writer, I hire someone to tell me I'm an idiot and not funny and not clear, and I take criticism really well. You can fire me if you think I'm doing a bad job. So I begged, and they let me in, and I really sucked. I remember Cheryl, one of my super, Amy, read the room, Amy. Francois, one of my trainers, she's bringing a bag of bacon. I'm hungry. I was really the worst. But by the 6 months later, I won one of the two awards for the top mediators. And they hire me to do training videos and everything. But I had to have the guts to suck, to really suck. And the way I did that was to say, okay, you write. This is my fifth book, going menopostal. And you do something well, you won awards as a columnist, you're in all these papers, people take your advice, you seem to help people. So now you're going to do this, you're going to be a beginner, and you're going to really just fall on your face a lot. And I accepted that, and I saw it as brave that I was trying this. And I also thought, it's possible I could just keep sucking and never become good. So it wasn't like I just thought like I'll prevail. But I did. And it was through this hard work, and being willing to work harder. And you seem like this, with all the stuff you do, that, you work harder than seems reasonable to normal person. And I accept sometimes there are things that are hard for me, like organization takes me much longer. Whereas a friend of mine, she talks her emails. It's like an outline for a college paper. How does she do this? I'm rambling. Yeah. So, and another thing is also, here's one other thing, for people, because the mindset and the like where guys are that you talked about gave me this, that you need to ask for help at things you really suck at. It's really important, and to ask for social support also. And you don't even have to ask, guys. Okay, I know guys. So you can just call somebody, hang out with them, and you'll feel like not doing that. I got depressed during COVID. around April 2020. And, depression. So, this, I should backtrack a little bit. Unfuckology, it's a book about embodied cognition. And so, what this is that the mind is bigger than the brain, and that emotions are bidirectional. So action changes emotion and emotion changes action. So you can use this. And so what I realized is, okay, I'm really down. What do you do when you're down? You lay on the couch, you're depressed, you eat. Okay, what's the opposite of that? What's the other side of depression? Excitement. Okay. Well, I'm not excited about anything. But our brain's kind of dumb. It's marvelous but dumb. So if I get on the bike and pedal really fast, I'll get my heart rate up. So I'll feel like a person who's not so depressed. I mean, this really actually works. So this is the last thing I want to do. The bike's there. And I'm like, and I'm like, are you paralyzed, Alcon? No. Get on the bike and pedal. And I do talk to myself that way. I also use profanity because it seems funny and energizing. So I did that. And then I made myself dial, like my finger didn't want to go there, my friend Catherine, to get her on the phone, because I knew, we'd talk and get lost in that. And I felt better after both things. But you have to make yourself be like your parent, make yourself do the stuff you need to do and realize, okay, well, I'm going to do that. What is that costing you? Like, you get on the bike or whatever. It's just a thing. It's brief. You're uncomfortable, to accept the discomfort. All of this feeds into your being able to do the things that can advance your life, where you have another life. Basically, we have this potential to have, with the health we have, even with the doctors and everything, to have this third and fourth act. And I see that a friend of mine, Debbie Levin, she sold Callahan to the alt weeklies. Callahan, the quadriplegic cartoonist, who's my friend. He and then like animators and stuff like that. I was just thinking of one of his jokes. He liked to destigmatize being quadriplegic and paralyzed, and he would go around Portland in his motorized wheelchair saying, "See my new shoes? I hear they're comfortable," and did other stuff like that. Sorry, I got off track. But so
Yep.
Debbie, we met on the alt weeklies, and that was what she did. And she has become, later in life, I think she's might be 5 years older than I am, this incredible ceramic artist, like sought after. The interior designers, these famous designers around LA, are using her work. She's selling it in stores. I mean, it's so incredible. And I see her growing as an artist, where it's really art. It's not just like she's making a pot. And this is the kind of thing you see. Or there's a lady in my neighborhood who volunteers. She retired. Volunteers teaching kids and adults to read. Literacy volunteers. I mean, there are all these things you can do. Move to Lisbon.
Right.
Take a boat around the world, which I get seasick. I can't go off the dock. But these are the kinds of things where you can have this new life, but you have to be willing to invest in discomfort and invest in health, and just make some of these steps, and also invest in self-compassion that you're going to fail. And this is the thing, we all fail. We're screw ups. We're human, and you have to plan for the failure, and agree to accept it the same way you would talk to another person. And what was I going to say about the failure thing? I just had a thought on that. Oh, an important thing is goals versus systems. So a goal is, I'm going to eat, like, I'm going to not eat this thing, or it's easier to do than not do for us. I'm going to stick to my diet plan today at lunch, and then you don't. And so if you just have a goal of doing that, then you failed and you feel crappy. But if you have a system, instead of, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to have, and not just healthy, like everything's connected way, not just healthy in diet, but I'm going to be physically healthy, mentally healthy. I'm going to advance myself. I'm going to challenge myself. These are the things that all fit together and make you be a person who has a satisfying, meaningful life throughout your life, using every bit of your life in a meaningful way that makes you happy, ultimately.
Awesome. So I got to ask one more question for you. Where do we find your book?
Oh, okay. I didn't get into the why women go crazy, but this, going menopausal, get
Yeah.
it for the women in your life. It's really good, and you can read the parts about that, the mental health issues, and then that's at Barnes and Noble, Amazon, indie booksellers. And by the way, I have my audiobook is read by the very sexy voiced Carrington McDuffie. She's a singer. She does all my books. I once cast Eartha Kitt for a Hardee's commercial, so I know how to cast. And so that's really wonderful for people who don't read. That's also available at Barnes and Noble and Amazon. So going Menopostal. And then my other books are also, if you go to my site, amyalkon.net, it's Alkon, last name ethnically generic, um, that you'll find all the books there, on F wordology, good manners for nice people say the F word. So,
That is
um,
awesome.
you can filled with profanity.
Awesome. Well, you know what, Amy, that was awesome. Thank you very much for sharing all the insights and everything like that here on Shed Talk. And you know what? We're gonna find you. Everybody like, subscribe, hit that pound button, just say, hey, we're here to go. And you know what? Loved having you on the show with Shed Talk. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Now you know. Shed Talk.